Have you ever felt like you've made a mistake so big that there is no coming back from it? Like you've wandered so far off the path that you can't possibly find your way home? Today, we're going to dive into a story that speaks directly to that feeling. It's a powerful tale about failure, forgiveness, and a love that defies all logic. This is the story of the prodigal son. Our story starts with a wealthy man who has two sons. One day, the younger son comes to his father with a bold, almost shocking request. He says, "Father, give me the share of the estate that is coming to me." Now, in that culture, this was like saying, "Dad, I wish you were already gone. I just want my money now." It was deeply disrespectful. But the father, in an act of incredible grace, agrees. He divides his property between his two sons. So, with his pockets full of cash, the younger son packs his bags. He's not just moving to the next town over. The story says he journeyed to a distant country. He wanted to get as far away from his father, his family, and his responsibilities as possible. He was chasing freedom, excitement, and a life without rules. And for a while, it seemed like he found it. He lived a life of wild extravagance, spending his money on lavish parties and reckless living. He was the life of the party, surrounded by friends as long as the money was flowing. He probably felt on top of the world, thinking he had finally escaped his old, boring life for something much better. But here's the thing about a life built on fleeting pleasures: it doesn't last. Soon, his entire inheritance was gone. Every last coin was spent. And just as his pockets became empty, a severe famine swept through the entire country. Suddenly, the land that promised so much pleasure was a place of deep suffering. The fair-weather friends vanished as quickly as his money did. He was alone, broke, and starving in a foreign land. Desperate for any kind of work, he manages to get a job with a local citizen. But it's the most degrading job imaginable for a Jewish man: feeding pigs. He was so hungry, so utterly destitute, that he found himself staring at the pods he was feeding the pigs, longing to fill his own stomach with them. But no one gave him anything. Can you imagine that depth of despair? He went from a wealthy son living in luxury to a starving outcast, envying the food of unclean animals. He had hit rock bottom. It's in this place of utter desperation, sitting in the filth and stench of a pigsty, that he finally has a moment of clarity. The Bible says he came to himself. It's like a light bulb went on in the darkness of his misery. He thought, "How many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, and here I am, dying of hunger?" The memory of his father's house, a place of abundance and care, flooded his mind. In that moment, he makes a decision. A humble, repentant decision. He says to himself, "I will get up and go back to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Just make me like one of your hired servants.'" Notice his plan. He wasn't going back to demand his old room. He wasn't expecting to be treated as a son again. He understood the gravity of what he had done. He was prepared to live as a servant, just to be near his father's house, where even the lowest workers were cared for. His pride was gone, replaced by a deep, painful humility. He was ready to go home and face the consequences. So, he gets up from the mud and begins the long, difficult journey home. He's probably rehearsing his speech over and over, filled with shame, fear, and a tiny flicker of hope. He doesn't know what kind of reception he'll get. Will his father turn him away? Will his brother mock him? He's walking toward a future that is completely uncertain. But what happens next is one of the most beautiful and moving moments in all of literature. The story says, "But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him." Think about that. The father wasn't just sitting inside, going about his business. He must have been watching, waiting, scanning the horizon every single day, hoping for his son's return. The moment he sees that familiar figure, even from a distance, he isn't filled with anger or a desire for an apology. He is filled with compassion. And he doesn't wait. He doesn't stand on the porch with his arms crossed, waiting for his son to grovel. The father runs. In that culture, an elderly, respected man would never run. It was considered undignified. But this father throws all dignity to the wind. Love compels him to run to his broken, lost child. He throws his arms around his son's neck and kisses him. The son starts his prepared speech, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son," but the father barely lets him finish. He cuts him off, not with a lecture, but with a torrent of commands to his servants. "Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. And bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate." Every action is significant. The best robe was a sign of honor, restoring his position in the family. The ring was a symbol of authority and sonship. The sandals were for sons, not slaves, who went barefoot. And the fattened calf, that was reserved for the most special of occasions. The father wasn't just forgiving his son, he was celebrating his return. He explains his joy with these powerful words, "For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." And the party begins. But the story doesn't end there. There's another character we need to talk about, the elder son. He was out working in the field, being the responsible, dutiful son he'd always been. As he approaches the house, he hears music and dancing. He calls a servant and asks what's going on. The servant tells him, "Your brother has come home, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound." The elder son becomes furious. He refuses to go inside. He's been the good son, the one who stayed, the one who worked hard every single day. He never disobeyed his father. And what was his reward? He complains to his father, "Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who has squandered your property with a wild life comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him." You can feel his bitterness, his sense of injustice. From his perspective, it's completely unfair. And the father's response is so gentle and profound. He says, "My son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." The father's love extends to both sons. He reassures the older son of his secure place and inheritance, but he also gently corrects his perspective. The celebration isn't about rewarding bad behavior. It's about the sheer joy of restoration. It's about a family member who was thought to be gone forever, suddenly returning to life. This story is a timeless picture of grace. The younger son represents those of us who run, who make messes of our lives and end up far from where we should be. The older son represents those of us who might stay and follow the rules, but our hearts can become filled with pride and resentment. And the father represents a love that is patient, a love that watches and waits, a love that runs to us when we are at our absolute worst, and a love that celebrates our return with overwhelming joy. It's a reminder that no matter how far we've strayed, the way home is always open. It's never too late to turn back. Thank you so much for watching today. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that can change the way we see the world. See you next time.